My name is Amara Lewis, and until the day everything changed, I believed my life was ordinary, stable, predictable. I worked from home as a freelance designer, spent my evenings cooking dinner, and always tried to be the supportive wife my husband Daniel expected me to be. If someone had asked me to describe my marriage, I would have said it was quiet, not perfect, not thrilling, but safe. Or so I thought. Daniel and I had been married for 6 years. He was ambitious, polished, charming in public, and coolly distant at home. He worked in property investments, always dressed in immaculate suits, always with a plan, always too busy to help with anything that didn't directly benefit him. I convinced myself he was just tired, stressed, overwhelmed. I convinced myself of many things. But that Tuesday morning began differently. The sky outside was a soft gray, and I was halfway through answering client emails when my phone rang. The number was unfamiliar, a law office in Charleston, South Carolina. I nearly let it go to voicemail. But something, intuition, fate, my grandmother's spirit, made me answer. "Mrs. Lewis?" a gentle male voice asked. "Yes, this is she." "My name is Jonathan Fry. I'm the executor of your grandmother Ruth's estate. I'm calling with important news." My heart skipped a beat. Grandma Ruth. My childhood summer, the smell of cinnamon rolls, the warmest hugs in the world. She had passed away 3 weeks ago. I'd barely processed the grief. "I'm sorry to disturb you," he continued softly, "but according to her will, she left you full ownership of her restaurant, the Blue Heron." I froze. "The restaurant?" I whispered. "Her restaurant?" "Yes, the building, the land, all assets. She appointed you sole inheritor." For a moment, I couldn't breathe. It felt impossible. The Blue Heron wasn't just a restaurant. It was the heart of our family. Grandma Ruth had built that place from the ground up with her bare hands and stubborn soul. I spent half my childhood running around the tables, carrying napkins, stealing bits of pie crust when the cooks weren't looking. After she got older, the restaurant struggled. She tried to keep it alive, but the town changed, tourism slowed, and she refused to sell. "One day it will be yours, sweetheart," she used to say. "This place belongs to our blood." And now, it was. Truly, legally, completely mine. I felt tears burn behind my eyes. I don't know what to say," I whispered. "You don't have to say anything," the lawyer replied kindly. "You only need to come sign the papers in person, but the property is already yours." When I hung up, my hands were trembling. A restaurant, a legacy, my grandmother's dream, placed directly in my hands. I immediately thought of Daniel. He always complained about his failing investments, about never catching a break, about me not doing enough to support his ambitions. He was going to be thrilled. Finally I had something that could make him proud of me. I ran upstairs where he was tying his tie, preparing for another important meeting. "Daniel," I breathed, "you won't believe what happened." He checked his reflection, adjusting the knot, barely glancing at me. "Can it wait? I'm late." I swallowed the sting. "It's about my grandmother." He sighed loudly, the kind of sigh that said you always pick the wrong time. "What about her?" "She left me her restaurant, the Blue Heron, everything, it's mine." He froze in front of the mirror. Slowly he turned. "The whole building?" "Yes." "And the land?" "Yes." For a moment, a flicker of shock passed through his eyes. Then, something else. A quick calculation. A spark of interest that felt foreign. Greed, maybe? But then he smiled. Warm, wide, charming. "Baby, that's incredible. Congratulations." He kissed my forehead. "You deserve this." My heart swelled. I hugged him tightly. Maybe this would change things between us. Maybe this would bring us closer. Maybe... "Do you know the property value?" he asked casually while grabbing his briefcase. I blinked. No, I haven't checked." He nodded thoughtfully. "You should. Delaware coastal land is valuable. Even if the business is old, the lot alone might be worth—" "Daniel," I interrupted, "I don't want to sell it. It was Grandma's dream. I want to go see it today. Maybe fix it up, reopen it." He hesitated for a moment too long. "Of course," he said finally. "Whatever makes you happy." But something in his tone, too smooth, too polite, made my stomach twist. "I'll call you after my meeting," he added, already halfway down the stairs. When the door closed behind him, the house fell silent. Excitement buzzed through me. I packed my bag, grabbed my keys, and headed out. My grandmother's restaurant was only a 2-hour drive. I wanted to see it with my own eyes, smell the old wooden floors, walk into the kitchen where I'd watched her knead dough with her wrinkled, wise hands. I wanted to stand inside the dream she left for me. As I drove, my heart raced with memories. Summers filled with laughter, customers who felt like family, the big blue sign with peeling white letters. I hadn't been there in years. Work, marriage, life. Everything pulled me away. Now I was coming home. When I arrived on the quiet coastal street, the sight of the old building made my breath hitch. The Blue Heron looked worn but still beautiful. Turquoise paint faded by the sun, windows boarded for safety, but the structure, solid, strong, waiting. I parked in the gravel lot. As I stepped out of the car, a gust of salty wind brushed my hair. It felt like a whisper from my grandmother. "Welcome back, sweetheart." The front door was slightly open. Strange. The lawyer said no one had keys except him and the groundskeeper. Maybe someone forgot to lock it. I walked inside carefully. The air smelled like dust and memories. Old wooden floors creaked beneath me. Sunlight streamed through cracks in the boarded windows, painting golden lines across the empty dining room. I smiled softly. "This is mine," I whispered, but then I heard it. A voice. A man's voice. His voice. Daniel. And another voice. Unfamiliar, deeper, businesslike. I froze. Their voices were coming from the back office. I took a silent step forward, my heart thudding painfully. "No, she has no idea," Daniel said. "She's completely clueless. Trust me, she'll sign whatever I put in front of her." My entire world went silent. I pressed my back against the wall, breath caught in my throat. "We'll sell the restaurant before she even finishes probate," Daniel continued. "I'll convince her it's worthless. Then we flip it to your buyer for 3 times the price." My hand flew to my mouth. He kept talking. "She thinks I'm supportive," he said with a laugh. "She's naive, sweet but naive. By the time she realizes what happened, the deal will already be done." My blood ran cold, and in that moment, one truth became painfully clear. My grandmother didn't just leave me a restaurant. She left me the key to uncovering the man my husband truly was. And he had no idea I was standing just outside the door. I didn't move. I didn't breathe. I stood completely still, my shoulder pressed against the cool wooden frame of the hallway wall, listening to the sound of my husband's voice. A voice I thought I knew, a voice I trusted, as it carved deep wounds into everything I'd ever believed. Daniel continued speaking, but his tone was different now. No longer polite, no longer measured. He spoke freely, openly, as if the person he pretended to be no longer existed in this place. "Look," he said, sounding impatient, "the market for coastal properties is insane right now. We can't waste time. Once the paperwork goes through, I'll get her to sign the transfer under the pretense of tax management. She doesn't understand legal jargon. She'll just nod, like she always does." A low chuckle came from the other man. "You're sure she won't question it?" "Amara," Daniel scoffed. "She trusts me blindly. She thinks I love her. She has no idea how valuable the land is. Her grandmother was sentimental. Sentiment blinds people. She'll assume I'm doing what's best for us." For us. I felt something inside me snap, softly, quietly, but irrevocably. Us had always meant me doing everything to support him, me sacrificing opportunities, me making myself smaller just to keep peace in the house. And all the while he saw me as stupid, a tool, a stepping stone to money he didn't earn. My hands were trembling so violently I had to grip the railing beside me. The edges dug painfully into my palms, grounding me, keeping me from collapsing. "We'll renovate just enough to flip," Daniel went on. Your buyer already confirmed he's ready to wire the deposit as soon as we sign. This place will bring in at least $2 million, maybe more. $2 million. My grandmother's restaurant, the place she'd poured her life into, wasn't just a sentimental relic. It was a gold mine. She must have known. She must have known Daniel couldn't be trusted. That's why she left it only to me. That's why she didn't tell him. A bitter taste filled my mouth as I realized my grandmother saw something I refused to see. Right, Daniel added in a lighter tone. Just make sure the forged maintenance reports look natural. We want to scare her into thinking the building will cost too much to restore. A few cracked beams, some water damage photos. She'll panic and sign whatever I tell her to. My knees nearly gave out. He was planning everything. The fraud, the manipulation, the lies, all of it meticulously constructed, step by step. The stranger asked, "And the emotional angle? Will she go for it?" "Of course," Daniel replied coldly. "I'll tell her I'm stressed. That selling is the only way we can fix our marriage. She falls for emotional leverage every time." My hand flew to my throat as a sob rose uncontrollably. I bit my tongue to keep from making a sound. Hot tears blurred my vision. Emotional leverage. Fix our marriage. Every gesture of affection. Calculated. I forced myself to breathe silently, slowly, as the voices drifted closer to the door. I retreated down the hallway, my footsteps soundless on the old floorboards, heart slamming against my ribs like a frantic animal trying to escape. I reached the dining room and pressed myself behind the old wooden bar, hidden by the counter and shadows. A moment later, the back office door opened. Daniel's voice was clearer now. "We'll finalize everything in 2 weeks. She'll never know what hit her." The two men walked out. Their footsteps echoed across the room. I dared not move. The stranger said, "I'll email the documents tonight." "Good." Daniel sounded satisfied, smug. "By the time she signs, the restaurant will be mine to sell. Mine, not hers, not my grandmother's." I closed my eyes, swallowing the scream clawing up my throat. Their steps moved toward the exit. The front door creaked open. Sunlight spilled briefly into the dim room, then the door shut. Their voices faded as they walked down the street. Silence. Terrible, suffocating silence. I didn't stand up right away. I stayed crouched behind the bar, hugging my knees, trembling like a child abandoned in the dark. My breath came in shallow gasps. I pressed my forehead against the dusty wooden beam, tears dripping silently onto the floor. I waited 5 minutes, then 10, then 20. When I was finally sure they were gone, I rose slowly, my body stiff, my mind drowning in disbelief. I walked to the center of the room. The ghostly echo of their laughter still reverberated through the walls. My grandmother's restaurant, her pride, her life, had become a bargaining chip in a scheme orchestrated by the man I thought was my partner. I wanted to run. I wanted to scream, to tear every board from every wall and hurl it into the street. But instead, I lowered myself into one of the old wooden chairs. It creaked under my weight, the same creak I remembered from childhood. I whispered, "How could you?" The question wasn't for Daniel. It was for me. How could I not see him? How could I ignore the red flags? How could I spend 6 years sharing a bed with a stranger? I wiped my face with trembling fingers. Then something shifted inside me, not quickly, not dramatically, quietly, like the tide slowly pulling back before the storm. A thought surfaced. He thinks I'm naive. He thought I was easy to manipulate, too soft, too emotional, too fragile. But he didn't know me, not truly. He didn't know the girl who grew up in this restaurant, watching her grandmother fight for every inch of success. He didn't know the woman who survived life's storms long before he ever showed up. He underestimated me. And that was his first mistake. I rose from the chair, steadier now. A calm I didn't expect settled over me, as if the walls of this place, my grandmother's place, were lending me strength. I whispered into the empty room, "Thank you, Grandma, for bringing me here today." If I had come a day later, if I had trusted Daniel blindly, if I had signed anything he placed in front of me, I would have lost everything. But now I had something powerful. Knowledge, evidence, a truth sharp enough to cut through Daniel's entire scheme. I walked toward the back office door. The handle was cold against my palm as I pushed it open. The room was cluttered with old papers, dusty shelves, a rusted cash register. But I wasn't looking for nostalgia anymore. I was looking for proof. If Daniel wanted to play this game, I would play too, but on my terms. I scanned the desk. The stranger's business card lay on top. Mark Garrison, property consultant. My heartbeat quickened. Perfect. I took out my phone and snapped a photo. Then I noticed something else. Daniel's notepad, his handwriting, his calculations, his timeline. I photographed every page. With each click of the shutter, I felt myself harden, sharpen, become someone new. When I finished, I slipped out the back door of the restaurant. The wind slapped my face with the scent of salt and freedom. I wasn't broken. I wasn't defeated. I was awakening. And as I walked to my car, one thought pulsed steadily in my mind. He has no idea that I heard everything, and that will be his second mistake. The drive back home felt unreal, as though I were floating outside my own body. The steering wheel was cold beneath my fingers, the sky stretched endlessly above the highway, but my mind was trapped in a vortex of razor-sharp thoughts. Every word Daniel had said replayed in my head, slow, distorted, poisonous. She's naive. She'll sign whatever I put in front of her. She thinks I love her. Each phrase scraped deeper, carving new truths into me. But the more I replayed them, the less they hurt, and the more they fueled something colder, steadier, sharper. By the time I pulled into our driveway, the trembling had stopped. The tears had dried. Something inside me had transformed. Daniel believed he controlled the game. He believed he was the only one playing. He was wrong. The house felt strangely hollow when I stepped inside. Quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet where secrets grow like mold beneath wallpaper. I locked the door behind me, took a deep breath, and stood in the living room, staring at the life I once thought was stable. Everything suddenly seemed like an illusion. The framed photo from our honeymoon. The throw blanket Daniel never let me wash because it was expensive. The stack of property magazines on the coffee table, the scent of his cologne lingering in the air, a curated life, a sculpted performance. How many moments had been real? How many lies had I mistaken for love? I forced myself to breathe and walk to his office. The room was meticulously organized. Modern furniture, polished wooden desk, shelves overflowing with binders and real estate contracts. His laptop sat closed, his pen perfectly aligned with his notepad. A manufactured perfection. I stood there for a long moment before pulling out my phone. I scrolled to the photos I'd taken at the restaurant, the notepad with his handwriting, the forged paperwork drafts, the business card of the property consultant. Evidence, proof. But I needed more. I sat at his desk, opened the top drawer, and found exactly what I suspected, a folder labeled Ongoing Transactions. He never put labels unless he wanted to brag about being organized. Inside were contracts, maps, spreadsheets, and a handwritten list of upcoming deals. One entry stood out, Blue Heron post-transfer sale, meeting Mark plus buyer in 14 days. My breath hitched. 14 days. 2 weeks until he tried to sell my inheritance, my grandmother's legacy, right out from under me. My stomach twisted, but I didn't panic. Not now, not anymore. Knowledge wasn't just power, it was ammunition. I photographed every page. Next, I opened his laptop. He used the same password for everything, our wedding date. That realization cut deeper than expected. He hid nothing from me because he believed I wouldn't understand anything even if I saw it. That arrogance would be his undoing. Inside his email, I found threads with Mark Garrison, the man who had stood beside him at the restaurant. Subject line, land valuation attached. I opened the PDF. The Blue Heron property wasn't worth $2 million. It was worth nearly $4 million, almost double what Daniel had told his partner. He wasn't just planning to steal from me, he was planning to steal from him too. A cold, humorless laugh escaped me. They deserved each other. I transferred copies of everything onto a hidden cloud backup, a folder only I could access. Then I logged out, cleaned every trace, and shut the laptop. This wasn't panic. This wasn't impulse. This was strategy. But I couldn't do this alone. Not an emotional battle, but a legal one. I needed allies. Trusted ones. The kind my grandmother had, not the kind Daniel collected like trophies. I drove to the one place I hadn't gone in years. An old brick building near downtown where my grandmother's accountant, Margaret Collins, still ran her small private practice. The sign on the door had faded letters, but the bell above it chimed warmly when I entered. The smell of old paper and coffee greeted me. Margaret looked up from her cluttered desk, her face softening when she recognized me. "Amara?" she said, standing. "Sweetheart, Ruth always talked about you. I'm so sorry for your loss." Her voice cracked. For a moment, the world felt real again. No lies, no schemes, just someone who loved my grandmother. "Thank you," I whispered, swallowing a wave of emotion. She gestured for me to sit. "What brings you here? I didn't expect—" "She left me the blue heron," I said quietly. Margaret's eyes lit up. "She did? She always wanted you to have it." "I know," I whispered, "but I need your help." Something in my voice made Margaret sit straighter, concern furrowing her brow. "Tell me what's wrong." I told her everything. Not all the details. I left out the parts about my marriage falling apart, the emotional manipulation, the betrayal that still burned like acid in my chest. But I told her enough. Daniel's plan to sell it, the forged documents, the fake maintenance reports, the meeting planned in 2 weeks, the buyer. Margaret listened silently, no shock, no interruption, only quiet, focused attention, the kind of attention you give when you're already trying to solve the problem. When I finished, she pushed her glasses higher on her nose and said, "Your grandmother knew something like this might happen." I blinked. "What?" "She suspected Daniel wasn't good for you, didn't trust him. She told me once that wolves hide best among those who see the good in everyone." My throat tightened. Why didn't she ever tell me? "Because you wouldn't have believed her." She gave me a sad, knowing smile. Sometimes love blinds us more than lies do. A painful truth. Margaret walked to a file cabinet, pulled out a folder, and handed it to me. "These are Ruth's official ownership documents. Every deed, every tax payment, every inspection. You must keep these safe. Legally, no one can touch that restaurant without your signed approval." Relief washed through me. "Thank you. But you also need a lawyer," she added. "A good one. Someone who won't be intimidated by your husband's business contacts. Do you know anyone?" "Yes." She scribbled a name on a sticky note. "Her name is Evelyn Graves, sharp as a razor, and she hates property fraud." I took the note, gripping it tightly. Margaret stepped closer, placing her hands over mine. "Your grandmother believed in you. She knew you had her strength. Use it now." Her words rooted themselves deep inside me. I left her office feeling steadier, my steps firmer, my breath deeper. I had documents, I had evidence, I had allies. Daniel had no idea how quickly the ground beneath him was shifting. When I arrived home, the sun was setting, painting the sky bright orange. I sat in my car for a long moment, watching the colors fade into dusk. Then my phone buzzed, a text from Daniel. "Running late. Don't wait up for dinner. Love you." Love you. My fingers tightened around the phone until my knuckles turned white. He still thought I believed him. He still thought the facade was intact. He still thought the game was his. I smiled faintly, a smile that felt foreign on my lips, sharper, colder. Let him believe that. In 2 weeks, he would walk into a meeting expecting to own my grandmother's legacy. Instead, he would walk into a trap, the first trap of many. Every morning, I woke before sunrise, my mind clear, sharp, steady. Every night, I pretended to fall asleep beside a man whose touch now felt colder than marble. I cooked dinner, I smiled, I nodded, I played the perfect wife, the role he expected me to play, while silently gathering the final pieces of my plan. Daniel believed the world was a chessboard. He believed everyone around him was a pawn. He believed he could predict every move I made. But he forgot something essential. Sometimes it's the quiet pieces, the ones overlooked, that overturn the entire game. The morning of the meeting was bright and crisp, the kind of morning that would have felt hopeful in another lifetime. I dressed carefully. Dark slacks, a crisp white blouse, my grandmother's silver locket, a symbol of strength resting against my heartbeat. Daniel watched me from the doorway with a curious smile. "You look nice. Big day?" I applied my lipstick, meeting his eyes in the mirror. "You could say that." He didn't notice the steel beneath my voice. He never noticed anything that didn't benefit him. "Listen," he said, adjusting his tie. "After today's meeting, everything will change for us. This sale, it's going to set us up for life." "For us," I echoed softly. He didn't hear the edge in my tone. "We should celebrate tonight," he added with a wink. "Some champagne. Just the two of us." Champagne. To celebrate robbing me blind. I smiled sweetly. "I'd like that." He kissed my cheek, the casual, careless gesture of a man who believed he'd already won, and walked out. As soon as the door closed, the sweetness drained from my face like water down a drain. "It's time," I whispered to myself. The meeting was held at a sleek real estate office downtown. Glass walls, marble floors, the scent of expensive coffee. Daniel loved places like this, places that made him feel important. He was already there when I arrived, standing beside Mark Garrison and another man in a tailored navy suit, the buyer. Daniel's smile widened when he saw me. "Baby, I didn't think you'd come." I wouldn't miss it. He frowned briefly, confusion flickering across his face, but he quickly smoothed it over with charm. "This won't take long. We just have some paperwork to finalize." He gestured toward a large glass conference room. The table inside was neatly arranged with documents, the forged maintenance reports, the fraudulent transfer papers, the sale contract. Daniel placed a hand on my lower back, guiding me gently, possessively, into the room. I stepped away before his skin touched mine. His eyebrows lifted slightly. Mark cleared his throat. "Shall we begin?" The buyer leaned forward. "I'm eager to wrap this up." Daniel smiled confidently. "Of course. First, we need my wife to sign the title transfer so I can legally act as primary decision-maker for the sale." He slid a pen toward me. A simple gesture. So casual. So arrogant. I looked from the pen to his eyes. Those cool blue eyes that once made me feel safe and now made my stomach twist. "Before I sign anything," I said calmly, "I have a few things to go over." Daniel's smile faltered. "Baby, we talked about this." "No," I interrupted gently. "You talked. I listened." A muscle in his jaw twitched. The room had gone silent. I reached into my folder and placed a thick stack of documents onto the table. Authentic documents. Real documents. My inheritance paperwork, tax records, ownership deeds. "Let's start with this," I said. "According to the official records, the Blue Heron belongs to me, solely to me. Full ownership. No co-owner, no marital transfer, no consent from my spouse required." The buyer frowned. "I thought your husband said—" "Yes," I said, turning to him. He lied. Daniel's face drained of color. "Amara, we don't need to make this dramatic." "But we do," I responded softly. "Because you tried to steal it." Mark shifted uncomfortably. "Steal? Let's not—" I cut him off. Next, I placed Daniel's notepad on the table, the one I photographed, now printed in crisp black ink. His handwriting, his timelines, his calculations. Then the forged maintenance reports. Then the email printouts from his laptop. Then Mark's valuation document. Evidence upon evidence. Truth layered atop truth. With each page I laid down, Daniel stepped back as though the table were burning. "Where did you get this?" he whispered, voice cracking. "I was there, Daniel," I said, finally letting my anger surface. Cold, controlled, lethal. I heard everything, every word, every plan, every insult. Silence. Mark's eyes darted around nervously. This is a misunderstanding." "No," I said. "It's fraud." The buyer stood abruptly, fury written across his face. "You told me this was clean. This is illegal. I'm out." He stormed out of the conference room. Mark turned pale. "Daniel, what the hell?" Daniel didn't answer. He stared only at me. The man who thought he was the puppeteer now looked like a puppet whose strings had been cut. "Baby," he said, desperation creeping into his tone. We can fix this. We can talk. There is nothing left to fix. Tears gathered in his eyes, not remorseful tears, but panicked ones. The tears of a man watching his empire collapse. You blindsided me, he whispered. I smiled softly. No, Daniel, you blinded yourself. I stood, gathering my papers. And one more thing, I added. Evelyn Graves will be in touch. His face twisted. A lawyer? You're divorcing me? Yes, I said, and suing you. His voice rose. For what? For fraud, for forgery, for attempted theft, for emotional manipulation. I paused. And for underestimating me. He lunged forward, grabbing my wrist. Amara, don't do this. You love me. I looked at him, truly looked, and saw not my husband, but a stranger wearing his face. I love the man I thought you were, I said quietly. You killed that man yourself. I pulled my wrist free. You did this to yourself. I walked out of the building with my shoulders back, my chin lifted, the weight of years falling from me like chains hitting the ground. The sun warmed my face as I stepped outside. The air tasted like salt and freedom. My phone buzzed. A text from my new lawyer, Evelyn. Documents filed. He won't touch the restaurant again. Call me when you're ready for the next step. I exhaled slowly. A long breath of relief, of release, of rebirth. Then I drove straight to the Blue Heron. When I unlocked the door, the familiar scent of old wood and ocean breeze greeted me like an embrace. I walked inside, placed my hand on the counter, and closed my eyes. Grandma, I whispered, voice trembling. I did it. The late afternoon sun streamed through the boarded windows, illuminating dust motes that drifted like tiny stars. I imagined her standing beside me, smiling proudly. This place was mine, my legacy, my future. I wasn't naive. I wasn't weak. I wasn't alone. I was finally free. And as I stood in the quiet of the restaurant, I made a promise. Not to Daniel, not to the world, but to myself. No one will ever take what's mine again.